Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Williamson. How are you? By the time you are listening to this, I will be 1 week away from reporting to camp full-time and doing the drive with Dale from 1 to 4 every day starting Thursday when first practice is. Pretty darn psyched about that, to say the least. So we are not far off. What I want to talk about today, snap-weighted age. And what that means is the exact age of every player on the field broken down to the lowest common denominator per snap. And this is something I look at every year. So on offense, if you were to accumulate every snap and every player's age, all 11 players on the field, their average age on offense was 26.2 years old. Only two teams in the league, the Packers and why aren't I seeing 31? The Colts had a younger group of offensive players per snap. Again, breaking it down the lowest common denominator than the Steelers. On the other side of the ball, this might not surprise you that much, but the Steelers were more than 2 years older per snap any given time of the season on defense. They were, on average, anytime you just would pull it out, they were 28.4 years old. That was the oldest defense in the entire league. Number 2 was New Orleans, who you think about having a very old defense, and the Steelers did too. So if you combine those things, they were the ninth oldest team in the league, breaking it down per snap. Now, this isn't necessarily bad, but I do think it's noteworthy, that to be that big of a discrepancy on offense versus defense. Now, projecting that forward, we don't know who's going to get hurt and how many snaps are going to be divided across the board, but we have an inclination. And first off, people forget to do this when you think about an exercise like this, but every returning starter, George Pickens, Cam Hayward, old, young, whatever, well, they're all 1 year older. So you add a year to every one of them, so everyone gets a year older that returns. But you also make a lot of changes. So on offense, they're going to get older at quarterback. Wilson's going to be the starter. But that doesn't really worry me. And getting old's not necessarily bad. You want to be in your prime. You want to be good. Like I remember the Bucs team that won the Super Bowl recently. They were one of the youngest teams in the league, except they had Tom Brady at quarterback, who was really old. So an old quarterback or a in your prime quarterback or 30-year-old quarterback is not the same as a 30-year-old running back. See what I'm saying? So obviously going from Pickett and others to Wilson, you're going to be older there. But you're going to be younger at center. You've got to be younger at receiver. I mean, all the snaps Allen Robinson got and Deontay Johnson, they're going to be supplanted with younger players, we're assuming. But other than that, it looks like basically, and Dan Moore's snaps will get, will be decreased too for a younger player as well, you would think. But you would think across the board, most of those guys, James Daniels, Freiermuth, are just 1 year older, so age on that side of the ball doesn't worry me, but you would also think that you're not going to be one of the youngest and least experienced offenses in the league anymore. Now on defense, if you project the starters, so the people that are going to play a lot, the outside linebackers, the edge guys are just a year older. Cam's just a year older. Benton's just a year older. Ogunjobi's just a year older. At linebacker, Holcomb and the returning guys are just a year older. I think Wilson's going to play some, maybe a lot, maybe none. And Queen's very young. Queen's only 24 years old. Where you really get younger, though, is in the secondary. Levi Wallace is gone. Patrick Peterson played the most snaps of your entire defense at a very advanced age. So even though Jackson's not a rookie, And Sutton, when he plays, aren't, young, but they're basically in their prime. So I think you get a little younger. You certainly get a lot faster there. Safety, you get a little bit younger as well. And I'm not exactly sure who, young players are going to, rookies are going to see the field a ton. The guys like Porter and Minka, of course, get a year older. But I just wanted to bring that up, that I don't love that you're at one massive end of the spectrum on one side of the ball and one massive side of the spectrum on the other side of the ball. And I expect that to come both a little bit towards the middle, which I think is an easier way to team build going forward. You don't want to have to get in the situation where, man, we got to spend an entire draft on defense because we're so old here. That paints you into corners as a team builder. So I found that interesting. It's one of the anomalies in the league in terms of teams being really high on one side, really low on the other, or vice versa. So I found that interesting. Something just to be aware of with big picture team building. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports, from baseball, golf, and many more. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. It may have slipped your, stream of consciousness here, and it's not huge news to you, but it is noteworthy. And I talked about this when the Patriots extended Ramondre Stevenson and how it might, change my thoughts on Najee Harris, which it did. And frankly, I'm not real excited about adding anything to Najee's contract right now. You go back and listen to that podcast, but a lot of it's because this upcoming draft class is unbelievably loaded at running back. Anyway, that's not where I'm going with this today. Quinn Meinerz. You might not know who that is. He was a small school player, a guard drafted in the 3rd round by the Denver Broncos. Signed an extension yesterday for big money. And as we've seen, guards, to a lesser degree centers, but guards got paid heavy in free agency, more than I thought. And Meinerz is making about $20 million a year, with a big chunk of it guaranteed. Which might sound insane to you, and I don't expect you to be a Quinn Meinerz expert, but he's an exceptional young guard. He's one of the true assets on a team in Denver that doesn't have many of them to build around. If I were drafting what guards in the league do I want to build my team around, he would definitely be one of my top 3 or 4. Quentin Nelson and Tyson Smith with the Cowboys, just young. And Nelson's not super young, but he's one of them 20 million plus guys right now too. So in this market, I think Meinerz is as valuable as just about any guard out there, I guess is my point. He's a really good young player that's turned into a franchise cornerstone type of dude. Now, I'm not implying that James Daniels is at that level, but Daniels is remarkably young. And I had thought months or so ago, maybe he would be a good guy to talk to now about an extension before he hits the open market. And even that was after drafting McCormick, who I think you guys know I'm really high on. But I don't know that that's something that's feasible anymore. Because if I'm James Daniels, some of the guys that aren't to Meinerz level, but are good players, Dotson being one of them, who used to be here, of course, I want to hit the open market next year. I don't think I would be really interested in talking contract with the Steelers unless you just love it here. And I don't think they're going to give him $20 million a year. And he's clearly a tier below the top guys. But he's going to make a ton of money this offseason, I guess is my point. So I think you need to think about the guard position past this year, probably without him. But if he's great, franchising him is not an option because that's the same money as tackles and they make a lot more money. But maybe you can get an extension done. But my hunch is it's probably the last year for James Daniels. And I've told you this a million times. They can afford anyone they want. If they truly want him or whomever, they can afford it. They have the cap space to do it. Now, that to me doesn't mean that Herbig can't be trade bait or McCormick can't take some snaps at center. But I think you really want to groom McCormick to be a potential probable starting guard a year from now. And to me, that means playing him like crazy in the preseason and really seeing what he is. I mean, he's one of the guys that is all of a sudden one of the most crucial guys to evaluate, for the future. And I know that's not the most exciting topic out there, but you have to look at these things when you team build, just like the age stuff we talked about before. I've brought this up before, but we have a lot of new listeners. The guys that I would talk contract with now are Warren, who I think you can get really cheap considering the earnings he has to date are very low. Freiermuth has been talked about a lot as well, extending him. I think Daniels now is off the table. If you get into camp and you get into preseason games and Fields is really impressive, I think you could add a year to his contract. That would make a lot of sense. We've talked that one to death, but I think that one is certainly interesting. And Cam Hayward. I know that one's still floating around out there, but I think you would love to add a year or two to Cam's deal. I think it's good for morale. I think he still has good football in him. So there's not a lot of candidates, but again, they have so much money. It would be nice to lock these guys up and feel a little firmer, a little safer about where the roster will sit when the season ends. I think all those guys could have potentially big years. Fields is his own beast, of course. Maybe Fields is a starter here next year. I'd sleep a little better at night knowing at least you have him under contract for one more year. Warren, to me, is buy now bargain. Freiermuth's price only is going to go up, and I think he's better than he showed last year, and I think we all know what Cam Hayward brings to the table. So in terms of deals that might get done in camp, those are the ones off the top of my head that I think that would make a lot of sense. And Daniels, to me, is now no longer on that list. Not his fault at all. It's just that market is getting crazy, and if I were him, I want to hit the open market. So that's what I came up with today. I often look at this team not just for now, but as big picture, where do these things slot in? How do you eliminate needs and make strengths or improve on your strengths in terms of the entire roster down the road? And that's how front offices look at things. But that's what I wanted to share with you today. Take care. Camp is right around the corner.